Good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our webinar today. I'll give us just a moment to let our live registrants enter the webinar, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We'll get started in just a moment. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Bienvenidos. For those of you who want to continue in English, please stay put.
Las personas que desean escuchar la versión en español, por favor, elegir el idioma oprimiendo el botón en forma de círculo donde dice español en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Gracias.
Thank you, Tiffany. And again, welcome and good morning to our live attendees today. We are grateful you have joined us for our webinar, Supporting Justice-Involved Youth in Schools and Community Settings. I am Molly Streer, and I am one of the hosts of our webinar today. I use the pronouns she, her, and I'm a white cisgender female in my early 40s with chin-length dark brown hair. I am wearing a black top, and my background is blurry. I am the school counseling program coordinator in the Department of Counseling here at San Francisco State, and I am one of the co-investigators for this project. I am working alongside the project's primary investigator, Dr. Julie Chronister, who is the coordinator of our clinical mental health counseling program, and my co-investigator, Dr. Tiffany O'Shaughnessy, who is the coordinator of our marriage and family therapy program. I would like to introduce and thank our graduate assistant, Lennon Fanning, who is supporting the technical aspects of our webinar today. And I would also like to thank our other project assistants, Kiana Day Smith, Sarah Guerrero, and Jace Perry for their support. I would like to acknowledge that SF State's campuses in San Francisco sit on the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. We further acknowledge that we work and live on the ancestral lands and waters of many other Indigenous peoples and nations. We are committed to ensuring this webinar is accessible to our audiences. Closed captioning is available in the closed captioning option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If at any time your access needs are not met or become not met during the webinar, please send a chat directly to a host or co-host. Access is always a work in progress, so we appreciate your comments, feedback, and support. This is our second live webinar of the year, sponsored by our Equity and Justice-focused Integrated Behavioral Health Counselor Training Project, which is fully funded by the Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration as part of an award totaling $1.9 million. A couple of additional things before we begin. If you are one of our HRSA stipend recipients or are interested in receiving continuing education units for your attendance today, please pay close attention to the announcements provided in the chat for sign-in and evaluation links. As a reminder, this is a live recorded Zoom webinar. Therefore, the audience is not visible and the audience cannot turn on their video or audio. The chat function is available for comments, sharing of resources, supportive emojis, etc. To ask our presenter a specific question, please post your question in the Q&A function. Q&A will occur during the last 5 to 10 minutes of the webinar, so please post your questions in Q&A as they emerge, and the presenter will answer questions at the end of the webinar. We are very excited to welcome our presenter, Ms. Hattie Tate, who is an amazing leader and advocate for more equitable and socially just behavioral health and education services for youth in the Bay Area. As an administrator and program coordinator in Oakland Unified School Districts, Ms. Tate works tirelessly to bridge the gap between Oakland Unified Schools, Oakland's Department of Violence Prevention, and the Alameda County Probation and Behavioral Health Care Services departments. Her background is in business and finance, and she brings many years of experience in education, program coordination, program management, project development, grant management, and strategic planning. Hattie focuses on building healthy communities, one person or one family at a time, with expertise in equity and inclusion, academic success, social belonging, restorative justice, gender issues, and building community health and wealth. Ms. Tate's work and research partnerships, such as the Stanford Impact Lab's Lifting the Bar project, have illuminated the racial disparities of juvenile detention practices and the school to prison pipeline, demonstrating the importance of centering students' voices and building supportive relationships between students and educators to interrupt educational inequities. Ms. Tate has an unwavering commitment to serving the underserved and those of disadvantaged communities through education, advocacy, collaboration, strategic planning, and goal setting. She is a compassionate leader who demonstrates integrity while managing change and always looking forward to success. It is with gratitude that I will now pass it to our presenter, Ms. Hattie Tate.
Thank you so much, Molly. Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to share with you what has become my lifetime work. As Molly stated, I am an Oakland Unified School District administrator. I've spent years as an elementary teacher, high school teacher, high school principal, and then appointed to do this work in partnership with our city and with our county. Next slide, please. In the work that I do, I formed a partnership around not just our district vision, but also I link the work that I do to other partners. One of the primary partners that I've had almost 10 years of joyful experience in working with is Stanford University. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce my Stanford University technology assistant, who is Vicky Asaris. She is currently a recent graduate of Stanford from the class of 23. She conducted an honors thesis on the implications of providing ELL students with an introductory platform to their teachers. And she received accolades from Stanford's psychology department for her thesis. She's passionate about youth educational access, as I am, and focuses particularly among youth of color. And at this time, I'll just let her just speak, and well, you'll get to maybe hear from her during the question and answer, but she's happy to be here with us. So in the work that I do, one of the primary goals that I set every year in the work that I do, oh, there she is. You can just wave, Vicky. So glad to have you here with me today. One of the critical points of success in the work that I focused on is equitable outcomes. And for me in education, equity has really always been creating a personalized plan for success. That works in this work of socio-emotional wellness for adults and for youth. And that means that I align my goals and targets for the year to the goals, targets, and vision of my district. So our district has a vision that students will find joy in their academic experience while graduating with the skills to ensure they are caring, competent, fully informed critical thinkers who are prepared for college, career, and community success. So that means that we're not just focused on the level of academic performance, we also focus on the socio-emotional growth needed to be successful. Next slide, please. Our Department of Violence Prevention is a department that has evolved from the work that I've done in partnership with them over 12 years. We started out as a local measure on the ballot, which it still is. And we grew from there to a unit called Oakland Unite. And then in recent years, our city council actually passed policies and created our very own Department of Violence Prevention. It is a part of the budget that helps target violence in partnership with our public safety, our police department, and fire department. The great thing about this partnership is it also focuses on community members. So here, residents and public agencies, community-based organizations, we all try to use effective, proven, evidence-based methods to target our highest risk community members and neighborhoods, and we focus on interrupting violence as it's occurring and preventing future violence. A little bit about that is, as a principal, I worked with the same community-based organizations. They were partners on my campus. They were engaged in the after-school programs that I implemented. And then as a partner at this higher level, those same agencies partnered with me to provide the individual life coaching that focuses on students that get in trouble and helping them get out of trouble. Integrating our work with a direct and intentional focus to prevent and intervene when conflict arises in our city and on our school campuses is critical. So one of the prominent partners I work with is a young man who actually gets a phone call when there's violence involving gunshots from the police. He then immediately dispatches a team to the scene, partners alongside the police with the victims, with the investigation in order to prevent any further retaliation or revenge in our community. That kind of partnership from the community, in partnership with the police, in partnership with the school district and the justice system, is hugely important. Next slide. Here's some data that we collected after COVID. The COVID quarantine severed students' connections to schools. It caused significant delays in social-emotional development and disproportionately impacted marginalized students and students already inclined towards antisocial behavior. At this point, schools must commit to rebuilding positive, nurturing environments for students to learn and for teachers to teach. Next slide. So as an administrator, one of the key elements in my own principles and values is the fact that I believe because teachers teach and students learn, the rest of us have jobs. And so everyone in the educational system is a support for what's happening with the teacher in the classroom with a student. And so here's a couple more looks at how the violence escalated in our city after COVID. We were recognized nationally as having one of the most dramatic and sustained reductions in gun violence that any city had ever achieved. But all of that went out the window under our previous mayor after COVID. Our current data shows that there's an increased targeted violent crime by school-aged youth across the city. Violent conflicts that begin inside and outside schools, enter school campuses, and have an impact on school climate and culture and safety. And the key is conflicts that originate in our schools are taken to the streets, and if unresolved and not mediated, it'll impact the community's safety. And so again, it is imperative that we as a school system have strong disciplinary action plans that support the teaching and learning in classrooms. As a principal, for me, that meant that we had a 1, 2, 3 system. A teacher could speak to a student. 1. Number 2, a teacher could ask a student to wait for a private one-to-one at the side of the classroom or quietly in their seat. 2, and on the third interruption from a student, the administrative team and school site safety, academic guidance counselors, now we have MSWs, would step into the situation and take that student out for a deeper conversation around the behavior that interrupts learning. It's highly important that we organize that way, because if we're not all on the same page, we can't keep students safe. One of the outcomes from the violence that's happening now is the fact that if school principals, school leaders are not administrating campuses where students feel safe, they feel it necessary to bring weapons and violence to the campus in order to keep themselves safe. Next slide. In the violence intervention and prevention youth justice work that I do, I am so happy to announce that in our local county, our Alameda County Probation Department, since its inception, was known as the Alameda County Juvenile Field Services Department. And that was the Department of Deputy Probation Officers that would follow up on students when they were released from custody and placed on terms and conditions of probation from the court. In recent times, that same Alameda County Probation Department has changed the name of their department to the Alameda County Positive Youth Development Department. And that's huge as we look at how we've handled delinquency across our country, to have the probation department understand that they're actually the leaders as primary case managers and helping us solve this crime. They work not as law enforcement agents, but as advocates for success for students. And so there's been a whole culture shift in the Alameda County Probation Department. One of the profound things that happened for me was introducing the idea, along with the previous probation chief, that these are not juveniles, these are justice-involved youth. These are youth that may enter the justice system through some general neglect from the child welfare side, and they cross over into delinquency. And so we've collected data and studied enough information that we know the socioeconomic levels, the poverty, some of the trauma that young people are going through began on the general welfare side. And then if it's not cared for, if attention is not given, personal support and therapy given, the students cross over into delinquency. And so the purpose of the work that we do is to coordinate services and partnership with community-based organization, using the federal, state, and local public agencies to partner with school communities and provide effective means to reduce violence. So we coordinate with them in order to increase student attendance, decrease truancy, and partner with schools to increase the academic achievement. And so one of the things that I've used as my personal target and goal as a educator is the fact that there are 3 A's that students must get if they're going to succeed in school. And number 1 is they must have an attitude for learning. Number 2, they must attend school. And number 3, they must show academic achievement. So I support our schools and districts in developing school-wide violence prevention plans that include focusing on the individual learning. And that's exactly what our Lifting the Bar intervention does, the research project I have with Stanford. And you'll get more information about that later. We also provide guidance and technical assistance to schools as needed. In the 12 years that I've been doing this, just previous to this, I was privileged to create what's called a welcome circle. That is the reentry circle that an administrator can coordinate at the school site when a student is returning from being in custody. The reason that's important because detention is the highest level of, I would say, punishment, the highest level of rehabilitation that we can give a young person. So if we've implemented the most that we can do as a nation by having them in custody, when they return, we need to start a process that welcomes them back to success, where we reiterate and put focus on the purpose of school is to help you develop an attitude towards learning, learn to attend school and pass classes. And so it's really important that in the post-release area, the schools are partnering with those county agents that provide that information around what are the terms and conditions. Most often, if the person is under 18, they are mandated by court and law to attend school. So then it becomes incumbent upon us to be warm, welcome places where students can come and find the support they need. Next slide. Strong relationships with adults are ordinary magic for young people and demonstrated and founded on social emotional wellness. But 4 in 10 California 9th and 11th graders reported not having one close relationship with an adult in school. Students may face many barriers to developing strong relationships in order to sustain an attitude for learning. Our Stanford-specific targeted approach, Lifting the Bar, will support and does support building these relationships and changing the lives of young people. Narrow targeted focus on relationships at key times can have a significant impact on young people. For example, as a principal, I can remember the first time I hosted a welcome circle in my office for a parent and a student that was returning from detention. I literally had a parent break down in tears and say, I've never had anyone say to me, these are all the things I'm offering for the success of my child. And so we actually partner with parents in a way that parents also are able to be comfortable enough to release emotion and then grow in their own ways of social emotional wellness. We really try to rid the environment of parents having to take strong yelling approaches to getting help for their students. We really focus on what a parent thinks their child needs and what a student thinks they need. Next slide. At this point, there is some impact that I want to give from students that actually returned from being in custody, and we'd like to share what they actually said they'd like the teacher to know. And it also kind of gives you a kind of shift in the narrative and perception of what they're thinking and what's going on with them when they return to school. So the question in our research is, how would you like your teacher to know? What would you like your teacher to know about you as a person? And what is it important to you? So students get to write or articulate one or two things, and we document it. So number one, I want them to know that I care about making people happy and that I respect them. I would like them to know that I'm a serious person about my school and graduating and play football, but I just have problems catching up fast. I have a bad attitude and I get bored easily. Number two, what would you like your teacher to know about your goals in school? I want them to know everything about my goals in life, and I want them to know that I'm for real. I would want them to know that I want to have all A's and B's, and from that, I want to graduate and play college football. I also would like for them to know that I'm going to try to stay in class. This next question is about what's difficult for you and what would you like to improve so they can help. And here's an honest answer. How bad I stink at reading, how bad I am at computation. I would like to help myself and get from other people by understanding it one by one and going slowly through the process. I need more one-on-one time with the teacher because I don't learn as fast as other kids. These are real honest answers that as a principal, I didn't find students coming back sharing this kind of information with the principal, with the academic guidance counselor, with teachers, unless I provided a space where they felt safe and where they received personalized planning help for their education. Next slide. This is our Stanford Lifting the Bar team. As I said, this research has gone on for more than 9 years. I think we've now expanded to several places across the country. We're in Chicago, we're in Milwaukee, and this work is also expanded to include our ELL population, as well as we have launched from this intervention a harm reduction intervention that helps students that may be involved in some kind of self-medicating or substance abuse. We give them options to work with this intervention in a way where they reduce usage. Next slide. The researchers that I started with, one of the great things about it is it's allowed all of us to grow and develop and spread ourselves across the country. So we have researchers now in Hawaii, we have researchers in Michigan and Minnesota, and then most recently, the first research coordinator I worked with, Jason Akanafua, is actually a professor at UC Berkeley, and he was featured by CASEL, which is a nationwide social emotional learning organization that provides trainings across our nation. And so he led our work in their national annual conference just recently. Next slide. Here's a short video that I'd like for you to watch to hear from the members of our team from our original pilot of this work. Vicki?
Adolescents face many, many different kinds of challenges. There's trauma, there's basic needs, there's academic challenges, there's instability in home lives, in neighborhood circumstances. But a strong, trusting relationship with an adult, it's not a panacea, but it's a foundation.
We are trying to understand what happens when children try to go back to school. So they've been in the juvenile justice system. They're trying to return to a traditional school. We were trying to think as social psychologists about ways to intervene so that more students can complete the high school diploma.
We elevated kids' voices. We asked them about their goals and values, who they are as a person, and what they would want an adult in school to know about them. We asked kids to nominate who might be an adult in school who could make a difference for them. And then we shared that information with that educator. We were trying to orient the child towards a positive relationship with that person and that adult towards a positive relationship with that kid.
A lot of that has to do with building positive adult relationships where students feel protected, listened to, cared for, and heard. And so all that feeds into a sense of belongingness and feeling like this is where I can be successful. Someone here cares for me, someone here is guiding me, someone here is concerned about my success.
What you're trying to do is help teachers to see a student and not just a kid who is justice involved. We're not trying to reduce bias. We're trying to sort of think about the ways in which bias might operate and then making bias less likely, taking it offline, so to speak.
It's focused on building a relationship between the person responsible for the academic learning and the learner. While educators have worked in a system that has failed youth, that has failed them, and sometimes seen in our society as a failing system, nobody signs up every day to go to work and fail. And so sometimes you actually inspire, motivate adults to bring their best self to the success of one student.
In the control condition, 69% of youth recidivated within that period by the end of the next full academic semester. And that is a tragic and sobering statistic. In the treatment condition, where the letter went to the adult, we tried to reorient the adult to see this person as a child, not a criminal, then the number was just 29%. It was a 40 percentage point reduction.
We are really eager to try to understand the boundaries of this. What can we do to actually improve it and to expand it so children can have a better transition and ultimately to have a better life.
So to understand the teacher's response, the first thought of the teacher was, in complete honesty, it would be, oh, great, why me? I would think that he would add problems to my class. But as I read more of the letter and I see that the student chose me to be his mentor confidant, I'm immediately reminded that he is a child that has made some mistakes and wants to change. He deserves that chance. And if I can, I want to help. This is the response of a teacher that received the letter. Next slide. At this point, I'm going to invite Vicky. Vicky, you want to come off mute and talk about this slide?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Tate. So just to give a little bit of background for this work, like was discussed in the video, so students hop on a 45-minute like activity that's all done virtually, and students first engage with experiences shared by older students, so challenges that older students faced in making this transition from the Justice Center back to high school. And as a part of this activity, they have the opportunity to reflect on their own experiences and sort of share advice for future students. And at the end, they're able to nominate a teacher to whom they would like to get to know better and share some unique aspects about them and their lives with that educator. And so those are the things that Ms. Tate reviewed a little bit earlier in this call. And we saw that in the pilot work done in Oakland, there was a 40 percentage point drop in recidivism between students who were in that control condition and between students who were in the treatment plus letter condition. So this means that they engaged in the activity, but they also were able to nominate a teacher, and then that letter was delivered to the teacher by our research team. And so when there wasn't that letter delivery, we saw that the recidivism was relatively the same between students in the control and in the treatment condition. So this really hones in on the power of the letter and what the letter does to help teachers sideline this bias that they might have towards these students, and really able to see the student on the student's terms, and are really able to see the student as just that, a student that's willing and to learn and that cares about school and that is committed to their education, and then are able to show up for that student and help support the student. So something as small as a letter and a shift in that narrative has huge impacts for students that cascade long into the academic achievement. We see here also school disciplinary citations had a significant drop between students in the control to students in the letter condition, the treatment plus letter condition. So almost 1 full point of a drop. And so just to again reiterate that power of this small scale but shift in perception that this work allows teachers to take a part in. And then, so I'll continue on here, Ms. Tate, if that's okay with you, to explain sort of where we're at now. Yeah, so now we're currently at a state where we've talked to a lot of district partners. We've, like Ms. Tate was saying, have expanded to districts across the country with Chicago, Milwaukee, districts in the Bay Area. And as we began these adaptations and as we began this implementation into newer and newer districts, we've heard from district partners, hey, what about our foster population? What about a refugee population? What about XYZ population? Just numerous student populations that experience slightly different but still significant like challenges as they navigate, personal challenges that they need support in as they're navigating school. And so as a response to this, we've now begun to adapt this original work that was intended for students in the justice system to include foster students, to include students experiencing substance use, to include English language learners, to include refugee students. And so our adaptation process typically looks something like what is summarized here in this map. So we engage with district partners, community partners, and identify like the focus population, and we then work with youth to adapt the material to fit their lived experiences and their sort of challenges, and then we work to create a platform for those various populations and just disseminate it across different districts, and see how students engage with the platform, see how students use this platform to introduce themselves to an adult. And I'll get into a few of the different responses that we've received in these different subpopulations, but it typically looks like students just reaffirming their commitment to school and asking for that teacher to meet them where they're at and support them. And we've seen in this last box that we have here titled research, we then conduct scenario studies, so online small vignette studies with teacher populations, where we present this letter and we ask, how would you react to having received this letter? How would this letter shift your perceptions of the students? And we see that teachers are very receptive to this letter and see this letter as sort of a gateway to seeing a student under a new light. And one of our biggest sites of adaptation currently is youth in foster care. And when we ran some work to sort of assess the extent to which there is a gap in the ways foster students see themselves and in the ways they feel seen by teachers or worry they might be seen by teachers, we found that foster youth see themselves as hardworking, talkative, determined, but then they feel that they are seen by their teachers as a bad student, that they are pitied, that they are disobedient, slow learners. Like a standout quote here, some teachers feel bad for me and treat me differently, but it makes me feel different from the rest of the kids I go to school with. There are some teachers who gossip about my situation and I don't like it. So just showing how perceptive students are of the interactions they have with their educators and how small, subtle cues can really shift the way a student feels in a classroom environment, and how students want to be seen by their teachers. They want to be seen as smart, good students for who they are. They want to be supported. And one student here outlines, my gut feeling is to say I want to be treated like everyone else, but the reality is I'm not like everyone else. And I think I just want teachers to meet me where I'm at and not make assumptions about me based on my experiences. So again, really iterating that students are acknowledging that their unique circumstances make navigating school difficult and more challenging than it would for a student that isn't in their circumstances. And so being able to have a platform where they can verbalize this and present this to a teacher in a way that they feel comfortable with and articulate it on their own terms. Do you worry you might be how do you worry you might be seen by teachers? Students share themes around reduced to an experience in foster care, invisible, or as a normal student. And an outstanding quote here, sometimes I worry that I'm seen as a normal student without needs, therefore I don't receive the support I might need. I feel like they look at us at what we've been through instead of who we became because of it.
And so if I could interject right there.
Yeah.
That's a real important statement, because even as I've done this work over the years, I've had people say to me how difficult this work is, and they don't understand how I do it. And my response has always been, yes, it is hard work to shift a narrative. It is hard work to create a safe space where students feel welcomed and they feel like they belong, but it's work I do from my heart. So this actual intervention actually sometimes will draw out that part of an adult on campus. It'll bring up additional socio-emotional learning skills that we use outside of school. But to change the situations we're having with violence, we're going to need to bring some of that empathy and some of that caring into the school environment in order to cause a student to want to feel comfortable and see us as a person to create a personal plan for learning rather than looking for it outside in other ways. Next slide.
Yeah, and so just wanted to review a few of the responses that we've received in piloting this foster adaptation with districts in Southern California. So these are the same questions that were asked in the justice population context. So what would you like your teachers to know about who you are as a person and what is important to you? That I do care about school, even if I don't always show it, or if I'm in a mood. My moods are sometimes or almost always because of home life and because of my mental health. I don't always get to complete at home assignments because I have meetings, appointments with social workers, lawyers, therapists, etc. What would you like your teachers to know about your goals in school? To graduate, to give school everything I possibly can. What would you like your teacher to know about what is difficult for you in school so that you would like to improve so that they can help? I don't like it when things are extremely quiet or getting yelled at, no matter the situation, because it worries me and triggers me. I also have trouble asking questions. So, and this is sort of the platform that students engage with, and they're able to just have these open-ended responses. And these responses are then shared with their educator of their choosing in this letter here that you see. And the student content is piped in to these bullets. And so the platform auto generates this letter, and this is then the letter that's delivered to the educator, where the educator is invited to be a source of support for the student and is invited to show up for the student and see the student as more than just their circumstance. And then again, we see those dramatic shifts in student performance that we reviewed earlier. And again, so this is the same questions that are asked in the justice context. So we saw this slide a bit earlier, just wanted to flag it again for y'all to see that this is the same questions. And so in the justice context as well, these are the responses that are piped into a letter, and that letter is then shared with an educator that the student chose.
And if I could add, in the what, 20 years that I've worked with students that get in trouble, the kind of information that students are sharing with this intervention on campus, it may take a teacher 6 months to build a relationship with a student to get these kinds of answers. And the work that I do with community-based organizations that partner with young people once they're released, some of the responses they're given and the relationship building, it would take maybe 6 weeks of meeting with a student every week to get a student to feel comfortable enough to share this information. Next slide. And so next slide. We're running out of time. I want to stop right here and see if there's some questions we can answer.
Yes, absolutely. We do have a few questions, and please remember, if you have additional questions, go ahead and pop them into the Q&A. Thank you so much, Hattie and Vicki. We appreciate it. So one question that is directly connected, I think, to what you're speaking about right now is the form sent to the teacher of choosing. Can youth in foster care not get accommodations? Don't some institutions have that opportunity, or is that different than this form?
So the form is something that's generated after the student has gone through an intervention. And the adult that they choose is in addition to any modifications or any accommodations that a 504 plan would point out, or that an individual educational plan would point out. This intervention focuses on relationships. And that's something that, in working with students that are designated as being differently abled, it is a whole different support to who they are as individuals. There was one question I think I kind of grabbed from the chat, and it had to do with the violence that's being launched across our nation from social media. And I wanted to say that that is something that, as a result of being on a campus where weapons were used, people were injured, I've partnered with the Department of Homeland Security, and Homeland Security is looking to work with schools in a more closer way to develop safety plans that include them training us on how to use social media. And yes, the incident I'm speaking of actually took place as a result of a posting on social media, and there was some information shared with the community that it might happen. And unfortunately, it was not a threat, because 2 weeks later, it actually happened. So yes, we are looking at how we can pay attention to what's happening on social media and how it impacts how we manage, how we create school safety, and how we protect students and adults on campuses in a way that learning can still take place. Next question.
Thank you, Hattie. Then, go ahead, Vicki. Did you want to read it?
Yeah, so that was what does welcome circles look like? Who's a part of it?
Okay, you got to speak a little louder for me.
Yeah, what does the welcome circle look like? Who is a part of it?
Oh my goodness, the welcome circle looks like First of all, it looks like the leader of the school taking time to meet with the student. Being the top instructional leader, I found it was important for me as a principal to facilitate that meeting. I welcome in the parent, I welcome in a PO, I grab any adults on campus that are available in that moment. I had a specific time of the week every Thursday at 1 o'clock when students could meet with me in this way. We would sit in a circle, and the number one thing we would do is introduce ourselves to the student and say, this is what I bring to work every day for your success. So as a principal, I would say, my name is Ms. Tate. I am here to ensure that you get educated in a safe environment, and anything that gets in the way of you learning, then I make sure we remove it. If it was an academic guidance counselor present, that person would introduce themselves and explain how they looked at the transcript, how they program classes and scheduled things in a way that it met the student's need, including recommending a partial day's instruction if a student had work that they needed to get to in order to provide additional income to their family. Yes, it was the participation of anyone who was available at the moment that the parent or the student was in the middle of having that welcome circle. But it was highly important that the important people on campus participate. Sometimes it could be my school safety officer, the person that actually searched for weapons when students came in, because all of us wanted to be seen as human beings that believed in their success and welcomed them to our campus to make sure they were successful. Next question.
Those are the only open questions that we have. Oh, no, we've got another one that just popped up. Do you think this would be a good intervention program for those who are not in foster care, yet experience much trauma and have limited access to health in a time of diagnosis and receiving resources to help, in addition to the community providing resources to help the student and parent navigate this? Would this intervention help with providing that student support when it comes to relationship building with their teachers?
Absolutely. In Oakland, we've just implemented a process where we no longer wait for a student to cross over into delinquency to decide that they need this intervention. We have a set of what's called risk factors where a student could have lost a parent. They could have lost a friend to violence. There are other reasons that we determine the student could benefit from building a positive relationship with an adult on campus in order to motivate them to succeed. Absolutely. Next slide. Let's see if we can wrap this up. So in Oakland, we've also created partnerships with our high schools and with additional people to support and interrupt targeted violence. So we have like an alternative school partnered with the nearest comprehensive school. There's a violence interrupter that works on both campuses because sometimes students may transfer from the comprehensive school to the alternative school, and that one individual has relationships with students before they move from one kind of educational plan to a different plan. We do that in partnership with several community-based organizations that have been doing this work for the last 20 years of life coaching and case management. Next slide. We also have partners with the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, which locally is led by an ex-probation chief who not only understands this work locally, but understands and participates in this work on a national level. We have added specific strategies around gender-based violence, whether it's for our LGBTQ population or for females that are involved in violent relationships with other students, or not, and also for young girls or males who may be at risk of being commercially sexually exploited. So we have a huge platform and strategy for interrupting human trafficking. And those partners participate, meet with us, partner with our schools, partner with our probation department to interrupt that as well. Because often there are other ways that violence enters into the community. It could be through the human trafficking area. It could be from some other illegal activity on the street that students are involved in, and it leads to violence on our campuses. Next slide. So the thing that I wanted to get to is here, this is the successful partnership that we've had for 12 years. In 2014, we won first place out of 700 counties across our nation for the way that we do this work. So not only are we using welcome circles and circles of support at the schools, on a daily basis, there's a group of liaisons that meet on behalf of students that are going to court and being released to go back to school. And so that is what we call a daily case conference. And we have shared goals and targets. And we meet in a Zoom meeting or Teams meeting, and sometimes in personal meetings. They're facilitated by the probation department, and we all participate equally in asking questions, sharing information that allow us to plan for the success of a youth from the moment they're booked, at every moment they appear in court, and after they're released back into the community. We do follow-up case conferencing as a team. So it is our public health and medical health department. It is our local district from Oakland, as well as our county Office of Education has a representative there as well. Our behavioral health department has a rep. And sometimes the youth and family, if it's an in-person meeting, then we meet with the youth and the legal guardian right there in the transition center. That work allowed us to be named as the top reentry program out of 700 counties across our nation in 2014. Next slide. I'm going to move on because I've talked about a lot of this. I want to get to next slide. We're about to run out of time. We all have different roles, and we really have leaders that lead in this. So as the administrator coordinator, I represent all students that live in Oakland or go to school in Oakland. And of course, the probation supervisor represents the probation department and all of the terms and conditions that students are released with. At this time, I think I'm going to stop the PowerPoint. There are some youth legislation that's been passed in recent years that I have, but I'll see if we can send out some of this deck to share as follow-up information to help you create success for young people who are just as involved in your districts. Questions? Yes, I see a question. I am on LinkedIn, and yes, I'd be willing to share my information.
Thank you, Hattie. And we will also share your presentation and information on our website as well. So folks will have access to this recording and your presentation with your permission. We have 5 minutes and you do have a few open questions. So I'll go ahead and jump into those. How would be the best way to build relationships with students to support youth with IEPs in participating in therapy without student being in foster system, but involved with juvenile hall and lots of trauma and does not attend school daily? Would it still be through the teacher, and is this an intervention supportive?
So the intervention that I developed was based off the way that I would facilitate an IEP meeting. I'd always open with the same icebreaker where everybody in the circle would introduce themselves to the student and the family during the IEP meeting and say, this is what I bring for your success. Number one. Number two, it would not be a disciplinary action meeting. It would really be a meeting where we look at the students' defined needs and how we were meeting those needs. If there was discipline to deal with in the case of the manifestation 60-10 meeting, that would be the last part. But as much as possible, I would establish an environment where the student felt accepted and the family had a sense of belonging and felt confident in the school bringing the best support for their child. Next question.
Thank you. How can we implement this intervention in our work we do with justice-involved youth? Do we have to refer out in order to provide this intervention?
No, this intervention actually can be launched by any member of a school site team. What we're doing now is, if you would email me, I work directly with Stanford to set up a presentation to bring it into your district and help you decide the best way to sustain it. So I have trained life coaches that come from community-based organizations. I think academic guidance counselors are a good place. I stay away from the MSWs and social workers because they have the job of giving therapy, and I'd rather have an additional support that's kind of outside of that work. So we've been successful in doing it that way. Before it was a research project, I even had custodians on my campus that motivated students to succeed and that would act as a liaison if there was any concern about attitude for learning, attendance, or academic performance. So there are many ways you can implement it on your campuses and in your districts.
Is there a cost associated with that if someone were to reach out to you to try to bring this important work into their community? What does that look like?
So in the video showed, Professor Greg Walton is the person that sets up the contractual agreements with the school districts. I'm just the educator, administrator that implemented this practice before it came a researcher. And so what I'd like to say is we have everything we need to do whatever we choose to do. This project does meet Title I funds and federal funding sources. If there was a need to invest in that way in order to implement it in your district, we have everything we need to do what we choose to do. And it is the right thing to do.
Wonderful. Thank you. We are just about out of time. We do have one more comment. It looks like in the Q&A. I think this is very innovative to bring to Houston. Unfortunately, the state of Texas doesn't value healthcare and education as they should. I'm aware Texas is a Republican state, which creates challenges when trying to create or advocate for initiatives, interventions to be implemented. Yet, what is a good way to start bringing this to our community? I also have a BSW working on getting my materials, and it's been interesting navigating this work from a social worker perspective because there is not much support in Texas.
So as an educator, I'd say you bring it in as an educator. That's one reason why I've stayed with the research. This is education. We actually end up working with people to teach them social emotional wellness skills or self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship building. And so, yes, while it's seen as social work, it's education, because as a high school principal in 2002, I brought those 5 components of social emotional learning to my campus as an educator to help my students learn how to manage their behavior. So stay with the lens of education. And even Republicans, all of us want our kids to do well, and we want kids that are not doing well to do better, because they're the same kids that we're all being impacted by. So I would keep hope alive, and I'd love to even have deeper conversations around how we can do that, how we could just bring it as an educational resource. That's what it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And on that note of keeping hope alive, unfortunately, we are out of time today. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, with the deepest gratitude to our presenters. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the important work that you're doing in our community and beyond. And it was such a pleasure. Again, all of this information will be accessible, and we hope to see you again. This was an amazing partnership, and we're so very grateful for the work that you do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
And
you.
we look forward to your success, everyone.
Thank you.